The Great North Atlantic rivalry between the British and the Germans has just kicked off, and it's time to talk about the first German superliner. Today, let's discuss the career of the SS Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse. So as we talked about in our video about the sort of Kaiser-Class as a whole, let's just kind of jump back to the beginning of the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse's story. So it kind of ties back to the 1889 Spithead Naval Review when Kaiser Wilhelm II toured the RMS Teutonic, one of White Star Line's Teutonic-class ships. He was particularly impressed by the ship's size, opulence, and most notably its ability to easily be converted to an armed auxiliary cruiser, which made him remark that Germany needs to build some of these, and here we have it, Germany's built one. Now, there's only two German lines, one being Norddeutscher Lloyd, the North German Lloyd Line, and the other being the Hamburg-America Line. Neither one had a ton of interest in large ships, but after being pushed by the German imperial government, Norddeutscher Lloyd took up the mantle of building Germany's first superliner, and construction began in the mid-1890s, with the ship finally being completed in 1897. In fact, she was launched at the Settiner Vulcan shipyard in Settiner on May 4th, 1897. When she entered service in September of that same year, she was the largest passenger vessel in the world, with the exception of the Great Eastern, which was a paddle-wheel steamer from the mid-1860s, which at this point had been a total commercial failure. She was also the fastest ship on the North Atlantic by a significant margin, quickly seizing the blue ribbon. Her maiden voyage was on the 19th of September, 1897, and her initial route saw her sailing from Bremerhaven in Germany to Southampton in the United Kingdom, and then across over to New York. Thanks to the ship's size and speed, she would steal the media spotlight almost instantly, her arrival in New York being a huge media spectacle. She was, at the time, the largest ship on the North Atlantic, and was the fastest, although that hadn't been officially confirmed yet. It wouldn't be until March the following year, 1898, when she would formally take the blue ribbon from the British liner, the RMS Lucania, a Cunard liner. And for the record, that record-breaking crossing, she was doing 22.3 knots. Now, this was a huge point of German pride. They had the fastest and largest ships on the Atlantic, and it was sort of a thorn in the side for the British, who had enjoyed naval dominance both in a military sense and a civilian sense for centuries. So this sort of challenge to their hegemony was huge. However, while the SS Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse was the fastest ship in the world at that time, she would quickly lose the title of largest ship in the world when the White Star Line launched the RMS Oceanic, just 2 years later in 1899. And the following year she would lose the speed record, not to a British ship, but to another German ship, when the Hamburg-America Line launched their liner, the Deutschland, similar in size and speed to the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse. While the German people may have been able to rest easy knowing that Germany still held the title of the fastest ship on the Atlantic, the Norddeutscher Lloyd Line was not ready to roll over and let their domestic competitors take that title. So they brought the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse in for a major refit. This saw her receiving most notably the first wireless telegraph system at sea. To further increase their ability to compete with their competitors, the North German Lloyd Line opted to commission 3 sister ships for the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse, founding the Kaiser-Class, hence why the Kaiser-Class is sort of broken up to the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse of 1897, and then her sisters, which started coming out in the early 1900s. However, the Kaiser was not free from incident and catastrophe. In June of 1900, a fire broke out on board while she was docked in Hoboken, and this fire unfortunately took the lives of over 100 people on board. After some major repairs following this fire, she was put back in service, only to have another collision a few years later. On November 21st, 1906, while sailing in Cherbourg, she collided with the Royal Mail packet steamer, the RMS Orinoco. 5 passengers on board the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse and 3 crew members on board the Orinoco lost their lives in this collision when the clipper bow of the Orinoco collided with the side of the Kaiser, tearing a big gash above the waterline, but still right into some passenger compartments. During an investigation, it was determined that the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse was at fault for the collision. But it's around this time, in 1906-1907, that a new competitor finally rose from across the English Channel when the British Cunard Line launched two massive liners, the Lusitania and the Mauretania, which were larger and faster than the Kaiser-Class. Leaving the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse and her sisters in their dust, they quickly took the title of largest and fastest ships on the Atlantic, stealing the media spotlight from the Kaiser-Class. Due to the domination that the Cunard liners, the Lusitania and the Mauretania held over the North Atlantic, the decision was made in early 1907 to transfer the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse from the Germany to America route to a more southerly Mediterranean to America route, with this transition happening on January 26, 1907. The final nail in the coffin for the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse's sort of dominance from a sort of opulence standpoint on the North Atlantic was the launch in 1911 of the White Star Line's RMS Olympic. This ship was much larger and more opulent than the Kaiser, and ultimately overshadowed her in nearly every way. With the German liners now falling way behind their British competitors, and new German superliners on the way with the Bullen Trio, the decision was made to bring the Kaiser in again and give her some pretty major refits. Most notably, they removed all of her second and first class accommodations, making the ship an entirely steerage ship, having a vast number of steerage passengers on board, hoping to bank on the immigrant trade for profitability. She would enter service in this role in 1913. However, she wouldn't stay in that role for long, because in August 1914, with war brewing in Europe, Germany invaded Belgium and Luxembourg, and Britain declared war on the German Empire. The Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse was almost instantly thrust into her secondary intended purpose as an auxiliary merchant cruiser. Brought into Germany and painted gray and black to match her now warship purpose, she was mounted with 8 15-centimeter guns and 4 12-centimeter guns, as well as 14 mounted machine guns, turning her into a pretty substantial little warship, except she wasn't little. She quickly set out on the North Atlantic as a raiding cruiser, during which time she sank the Tubal-Cain, the Kayapara, and pardon my pronunciation, and the Nyazana. Now, it's worth mentioning that during this sort of raiding campaign, the captain of the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse still tried to hold the honor at sea principles that had been present at war in the past, insisting that passengers and crew be evacuated from ships before he sunk them. However, as the war started to roll on and it became quickly apparent that this was a state of total war that was different from any war fought in the past, the practice changed to sinking ships without warning. She would soon encounter 2 more passenger ships, the Garletian and the Arlanza. However, these 2 ships were not sunk on sight, which was the intended practice. You see, the captain quickly realized that these ships had women and children on board, and instead opted to simply let them go, something that earned him a bit of a black mark. I think it's worth noting, too, that all of this is in the first month of World War I. It's in August 1914. So, with new orders in hand to sink ships on sight, the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse was sent to Africa to patrol off the coast of that continent. However, the trip down there burned a vast quantity of coal, so she needed to be recoaled. As such, she stopped off in Rio De Oro to be refueled by a collier there. However, while she was in Rio De Oro, she spotted smoke on the horizon. It would be the British cruiser, the HMS Highflyer, which was now steaming towards her. Seeing the chance for glory in battle to face off against a British warship, the captain of the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse ordered all non-essential personnel evacuated from the ship and put to sea to meet the British cruiser. After trading blows for a while, it became clear that the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse was not going to win this battle. Now, there's 2 conflicting stories on how this battle ended. The Germans claim that the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse ran out of ammunition and was scuttled by pre-placed dynamite charges. These are the claims made by her captain, who actually did survive the sinking and made his way back to Germany. However, the British claim that they had badly wounded the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse and the crew had abandoned ship on order of their captain. Now, I'm more inclined to believe the German story, as the British have more reason to claim that they sank the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse, but it's still to this day a point of debate as to what sank this great liner. But ultimately, with her being sunk off the coast of Africa, that ends the career of the Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse, the first German superliner and the ship that really kicked kicked off the great North Atlantic rivalry between Britain and Germany. If you'd like to learn more about the SS Kaiser Wilhelm Der Grosse, her engineering specifics, her interiors, and eventually her sisters, I'll leave a link up here to a playlist I'm building all about the Kaiser-Class of ocean liners. And if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Barbettes and Binnacles, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.